So what were the strategies you were talking about for Reader's Workshop?
So the strategies that I was thinking, focusing is one.
Okay.
Just coming up with a good thing to do with Reader's Workshop that we do a lot is we try to think of what are the things that can stop you from reading well,
Okay.
and then we talk about, well, what can we do to overcome these things. So focus is a thing that a lot of students have problems with because they either want to share something and so then they lose their focus because they're waiting with their hands up for me to come around, or they want to talk to a partner, or someone at their table is off topic and then they get distracted by it.
Right.
There's all kinds of things that can break their focus. Sometimes it's just they've been reading for so long they just start to get bored and they start to look around. So focusing is a good thing to do. It was a lesson that I wanted to do because we could talk about, well, what do you do in those situations and how do we get past those hurdles, I guess.
Nice.
Another one that I was thinking about doing was self-monitoring,
Okay.
which is something that we've kind of talked about, and it's just kind of bringing it back and giving it like a word to define it. It's just thinking about, or paying attention to yourself and thinking about what you're reading. Mm-hmm. And it's a big thing, but it's kind of a difficult one to define for them. But it's basically that while they're reading, they need to be sure they're not only thinking about what they're reading and understanding it, but thinking about themselves as they're reading it, asking, do I understand this? Like, should I go back and reread it? And then also paying attention to yourself and making sure that you're not thinking about something else. And paying attention to yourself, making sure that you are staying focused. And so it's one of those things that it was gonna be the follow-up with, well, now you know that you need to focus, but you also need to know that you need to be making sure that you're focusing. You know how to do it, but unless you're checking and thinking about it and making sure that you are focusing, then you won't know. So self-monitoring is just kind of reconnecting it and then building off of it a little bit. Okay. And then the last one that I was thinking about doing was, when is it okay to stop reading a book?
Okay.
Because we're talking about sticking with a book, and so far all I've been going through was, you stay with the book till you're at the end. You stay with the book till you're at the end. But there are times when it is okay to say, you know what, I should be reading a different book. And going over, like, when is it okay? Like, you realize a book is too hard for you. You realize you're just not interested in it, and it's becoming too difficult to get through it.
To focus.
To focus. You've gotten to the point where you don't, it's just too hard to understand. When is it okay to say, I should just put this one aside and read something else? So that's kind of the culmination of it, because this is when I'm saying, you guys need to read books till the end. But there's sometimes when it's okay to not do that. So it's kind of the last thing, and that connects back to self-monitoring. You need to be aware of when you are having a hard time with it, so you know when it's okay to just switch out and do a different book.
So all three of these are well linked.
Yeah. So that was my whole plan for this.
And how long do these strategy mini lessons take? Because you're obviously soliciting ideas from them. What are some of your roadblocks? What do you use to overcome them, in addition to just defining what these things are?
Yeah.
So do you link them before you start reading from Secret? You usually do it? Yeah,
and that's the difficult thing with Reader's Workshop, is because when you do this, the vast majority of the lesson is supposed to just be them reading. The entire time with link instruction, and then they're supposed to have time to practice as a group to make sure that they understand the concept.
Oh, okay.
All of that is supposed to be done within 15 minutes. So it's brief, and then they're supposed to have about 20 minutes to read on their own, and they're supposed to have an equal amount of time to that to then read with partners, and then you come back at the end and close it all off.
Okay.
But we really only have 45 minutes to do it, so it breaks down more to 15 of you teaching, about 15 them reading independently, about 10 where they're supposed to be reading with partners, and then about 5 to close it off is what we do. But that varies. Sometimes you just give them the whole time to read independently. Sometimes if you're doing a partner strategy, you give them, the whole time to read with partners. So with these ones, because it's more independent,
right,
I would say 15 minutes for the mini lesson. Probably about, I might even give them just the whole time to read independently.
25?
Yeah, I might not even do partners with this one so much, which they kind of frown upon here, but it's kind of wasted in something like this when it is more self-centered.
Right.
And then you bring them back at the end and you go over, you close the lesson off with how did it work, you know, tell your partner what problems you had with it, tell your partner your successes, who can share, like, or there's other things that you notice that were distracting you in this kind of thing, those kinds of things is like to close it off.
That might be good for these to do the maybe 20 minutes independent reading, 5 minutes will all come back to the rug, but still tell your partners about your use of the strategy, and then close it off whole group. Yeah,
and then closing it all, I mean, the closure part of it can be done in partners. Like, that can be part of your partner time. You can say, okay, discuss with your partner or whatnot, and that can actually be part of the closure. Perfect. Because it's 5 minutes and you don't want to just repeat it all. You want them to share what they noticed while they were doing it. So they can actually share with partners and then share, you know, with you, or however you want to do it for the closure. But yeah, so with these ones, the way it would end up working out is, if for the focusing one, because they are generating problems and stuff with you, there's a good chance that one might run a little bit longer than 15. Okay. You want to keep it as close to 15 as possible, but if it goes 20, you know, it's okay, because they need to share, you need to write it down. Right. Those things end up taking longer than just, here's our strategy for the day, this is how we're going to practice it.
Right.
And then going back to your other question about how do you do this then with a book, it's kind of up in the air. When you can, you want to try to connect it to either what you're reading with the class or another book. You want to try to show them an example with a book, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily connect well. Like with focusing, I probably wouldn't do any kind of read aloud with that one, just because it's hard to give an example.
Trail off and not have to do it with a concrete example.
Yeah, exactly. And what you can do, because after you teach it to them, you want to try to practice with all of them just briefly on the rug before you send it back. After you come up with those list of things, you can do something like, okay, now you're going to practice with your partner, and then find a way to decide who's going to do which. You know, you can tell them, or you can say, decide together who's going to be reading first. The other one is going to come up with some kind of distraction, and you can have them pretend to be reading and then say, one person's going to distract you. I'm going to see who can focus on their reading even when someone's, you know, being a distraction or something like that.
Right.
Or you can have half the class do it and say, okay, you guys are going to be talking to each other, and we're going to see if this half the class can remember our strategy and stay focused, you know, and you do something like that to just kind of give them like an example, have them kind of practice it, and then they're like, I need to keep reading when this is going on. Okay. And they will do pretend books and stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
I've
done it with them,
pretend books.
and they'll do it. A lot of times they'll say have them actually bring their books to the rug with them, so they're actually practicing reading. But in my experience, what I found is when they have their books, they're then distracted because they have their books. Some people will say sit on your books. But then we teach them be respectful to your book and don't sit on your book. So I've found that sometimes it's just better just, all right, imaginary book.
Okay.
So if you want to try these, I say go for it.
Yeah.
It's just, it is difficult because you are so limited in the amount of time that you really have. Yeah.
Can I give it a go, and I'll try with this one?
Yeah.
And then we'll reflect, see how that goes?
Sure. We can always change. If you don't feel comfortable doing it yet, we'll move to something else, and I'll do the other two in the other days. Or if you feel that you're good, then I'll help you go through it. And yeah, I'll help you plan out all three of these if you want to.
Awesome.
Or you're free to come up with it on your own. Basically, it's just you need to find a way to give them an example, give them a way to practice it together, and then let them go off to do it on their own. Okay. And then you just need to check and make sure that they're doing it. So.
Example, practice, and demonstrate.
Yeah. And then, yeah, that's basically it. And during the independent practice, you don't really have to do much. You go around, you try to talk to them and see, you know, how they're doing. Although with teaching them to focus and stuff, then you become the distraction. So you don't do that as much for that one. But yeah, you want to check in, you want to try to monitor and see how they're doing, and then usually what we do is we do some kind of mid-lesson interruption, which is another thing that we're telling them to focus, but we're going to interrupt them. But, you know, you then reflect on what you've seen that they're doing. So if you see that a lot of them are getting distracted, you wait, like this is like 20 minutes, you wait about 10 minutes and you interrupt it and you say, you know, I see that you guys are doing a great job, but where I'm seeing a lot of people are getting distracted, it's because people are talking to them. And remember, what do we do if somebody's trying to talk to us? Oh, we ignore them and we focus on our book. You know, like that, and you get them to do it. Or you say, you know what, I'm seeing that some people are reading for a long time, and they're stopping to look at the clock, and then they're getting right back to their reading, and that's great, because you're just taking a little stop, but you're getting back to it. But I've noticed some other people just staring at the clock, and what do we do in that situation? You know, like,
right.
you know, and you just, depending on what you see, like, you can't really plan for that. It's just whatever you see, but you want to give it a time just to
mini check-in kind of.
yeah, mini check-in and just re-cement what you're saying. Like, good, you guys are doing this, or remember to work on this, you know, and
right.
yeah, it just
kind of
gives
commenting
another,
on what I've seen.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's nice. Okay, cool. So I'll work on that.
So
What's
we'll do
another?
that. Writing this week is just going to be conferencing and whatnot, so that's out.
Okay.
You're welcome to do phonics. We're doing syllabication if you want to try that, or if you want to give math a shot. We're working on all conversion and everything in there. We're still doing measurement, so if you want to try math, we can do math.
Okay.
And those are the big ones for the day. I mean, centers, you can't really plan out too much. If you want to teach social studies to one of the other classes, when the other classes come in, you're welcome to do that too, but
Okay.
that's about the limit on your options right now. So what do you feel comfortable doing?
I would say phonics and grammar,
Okay.
or because I'm working, I kind of wanted to do a direct instruction lesson, and that's like breaking down for 7 steps to teach a skill.
Yeah.
So maybe calculate area might
Okay.
be better. Is syllabication a skill? Breaking something into
Yes.
syllables? Yes, it's definitely
Yeah,
a skill.
it's definitely a skill. So either one of those would work. And this day, actually tomorrow, is going to be time conversion. We have review, but we realized we didn't have anything for time conversion, so it's going to be minutes in an hour, and then days in a week. I think we might be doing, or I think we're doing minutes in an hour, and then we're also talking about half hours, and then we might be doing seconds in a minute also. So time conversion.
I think I'll stick with phonics and grammar
Okay.
for this week.
All right. So then we already talked about rhymes. We don't really need to go back over it too much this week. We're just touching on it, and then next week we're getting into the harder rhymes. But we are doing syllabication for this week. So there's 2 different rules that we're going to be touching on this week. I think it's 3 different rules, actually. Let me go get the packet. And I'll give you the packet so you can look through it and know
Nice.
specifically what it is that they're going to be doing.
I've been meaning to ask you that the question range that you have up there. Do you know where you got that from?
Which one?
With the little guy. Always
Oh, the really,
left?
really long one?
Yeah.
I got that from one of the other 3rd grade teachers. I want to say I got it from Julie, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But let me
I
ask.
need to copy.
I'll ask them all, and you lost your camera. Sorry.
No problem.
I'll ask them, and I'll get a copy for you. And if not, I'll just take that one down, and I'll run copies for you myself. I think it should just be taped up there, so I can copy it and then give it back.
Yeah.
So either way.
Okay.
All right. So phonics. If we're going to look at phonics, I actually taught it out of order because we were supposed to do rhymes on Wednesday, so their homework's all backwards. But it's because the people who are supposed to be doing our copies. Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Somehow the alarm got sent on this thing. I haven't figured out how to disable the alarm, so I set it for a time where they're not supposed to be here. But I guess I'm still here. All right. So the 2 things that we're going over, and I would actually say teach